Part 4, Perception of Magnitude. In paragraph 53 to 88, the perception of magnitude, and he's relying on what he has already established regarding distance. So in paragraph 52, he first touches on the existing science of the day, which states that we estimate magnitude by angles in conjunction with distance. Here, Berkeley says, we do not see by geometry. And also, because the theory assumes a perception of distance before magnitude can be established, implying that distance must be perceived before magnitude, he disagrees with that and claims that the immediate objects of sight do not first suggest distance then magnitude, but rather suggest each together and independently of each other. So according to Berkeley, we apprehend magnitude in two ways by sight, following along with his previously established distinction between visible and tangible. One properly tangible, perceived and measured by touch, and not immediately falling under the sense of sight. And that which is immediately visible via proper objects of sight. So we immediately perceive visible magnitude via color, and then upon mediation, tangible magnitude is brought into view. Now he states that neither of these are infinitely divisible, each being made up of points or minimums, i.e., I guess in modern terms, there's a resolution. So there exists a minimum visible and a minimum tangible, beyond which sense cannot perceive. So in paragraph 55 he points out that the tangible magnitude is more important than the visible. The visible magnitude has no fixed and determinate greatness, constantly changing based on the observer's movements, whereas the tangible is more steady and free from ambiguity. Therefore, when we speak of the magnitude of anything, we're always referring to the tangible. Though the tangible and the visible are distinct, in common language we refer to either using the same word. So then, how do we perceive visible magnitude? Well, he mentions three main ways. Perceived by color. From the ever-changing, lesser and greater visible image, we connect to the tangible in our understanding. Secondly, the confused or distinctness of something, which I would say is contrast, and the vigorousness or faintness, which I would call intensity of the color. And also the resolution is involved in this as well. And then adding that the judgments that we make of tangible magnitude via the visible magnitude also depend on the disposition of the eye, also on the figure, the number, and the situation of the objects, which in terms of number and situation he deals with later. And in 58, the connection of confused or faintness, which I have called contrast, with little or great magnitude, as with little or great distance, is an arbitrary association. Okay, it's not a necessary connection between confused faintness and little or great magnitude. And then he repeats really 59 through 60 that basically the tangible objects that we interact with and that can benefit and harm us are far more highly regarded than this visible magnitude, which acts as an intermediary. And so in paragraph 61, in regards to measurement, which is the standard by which we're going to be ultimately judging a tangible magnitude, when we measure objects with rulers and such, we are always dealing with the tangible magnitude. The visible ruler appears in many different shapes and lengths based on its relative position to the viewer, and that all measurements are tangible magnitudes. The measuring device is typically placed in direct contact with the object. So in 62, starting there, like distance, there is no necessary connection between visible and tangible magnitude. Greater visible magnitude could, under some circumstances, signify lesser tangible magnitude. Also, like distance, the judgments that we make regarding tangible magnitude are inferences made on visible magnitude based on experience. Now, paragraphs 67 to 78, he goes into a fairly involved discussion of the varying magnitude of the moon, explaining why the moon varies in size so dramatically at different points on its trajectory, as well as under varying conditions, using these principles that he has established. So starting in paragraph 80, he returns to the concept of the minimum visible. And now that he's established this clear distinction between what we touch and what we see, he can bring a lot more light to the concept of the minimum visible. And in paragraph 82, he basically states that whether in an enclosed room or in an open space, all creatures have a field of vision that contain exactly the same array of visible points or resolution. If we say at any moment that our field of vision has a greater prospect than at another time, then it is understood this does not refer to the immediate objects of sight, but rather the secondary objects, which are what we touch. Because whether you are looking in an open field or whether you're closed in a small room, the resolution of your visible field is the same. It contains the same number of minimum visible or minimum points. And he even theorizes that this minimum visible is the same for all creatures that have sight, whether it's a flea or an elephant. And you can read that argument starting in paragraph 80, going through to 82. Then in paragraph 85, he brings up the very interesting subject of a microscope. And a microscope in no way decreases the minimum visible. Our field of vision has the same density of points when looking through the lens because the resolution of the field of vision never changes, as I previously stated. However, it does present us with a completely new scene of objects, which we can learn about and through observation make judgments about, obtaining a whole new set of ideas, but still secondary to the direct and immediate objects of sight. So these new ideas that we're getting in the microscopic world are completely divorced from our tangible world because we cannot touch these objects. They're purely objects of vision when we look at the microscopic world. So hence, while looking through the microscope, we lose our ability to regulate our actions and interact with the tangible objects that are around us, which is a really good point which reinforces his whole argument about the difference between the visible and tangible world and how a man born blind who suddenly received his sight simply could not relate the concepts of distance, magnitude, and location to what he sees until he learns to make the association.